Happy Thursday, everyone. Hello. Welcome to Red Wine and Cigarettes. Tonight on Red Wine and Cigarettes, our guest is Tepo Hoba, and our topic is wife material. But before we get into that, look at the faces. But before we get into that, Tepo, thank you for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself before we jump right in?
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here, man.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself and then we'll get into the topic.
Yeah. Well, my name is Tapo, as you've mentioned. Turning 39 this year, and you can see there's a little two gray hairs that are protruding from my beard to evidence that. Originally from Limpopo, so Kinamutulebumma. So yeah, I've I've recently started running my business full time. It's a corporate governance consulting firm. It's been exciting, but quite a bit of work as well. I'm looking forward to what's that gonna bring, and I'm very curious. I love questioning the status quo. I love fresh perspective, and I'm a student of mental toughness. I've always been curious about the things that people overcome. People go and they come out on the other side stronger than they were before. And I've always been curious to know and to find out myself really what it takes. I think for me, it's a reminder that human potential is just limited to your mind. So yeah, but that's me in a nutshell, basically.
Thank you. Welcome. So let's jump right in. So tonight, as you can see down below, we want to hear your comments about this. We want to get your perspectives. We're really excited about this one. Tonight, we want to speak about what we call what everyone calls wife material. I think that we have all heard someone, an uncle, a cousin, a brother, a friend, a parent, speak about wife material, speaking specifically to the female. And it was something that we wanted to unpack. I know for a fact that for certain reasons that I want to unpack right now, am not always described as wife material. And I'm okay with that. Like I'm all right. But I think it's something important to speak about. Tepo, what do you understand wife material to be? When people speak about wife material, what do you think they're referring to? And two, what are your opinions on that?
It's funny that we're talking about this because last year I actually Facebook and I think on Instagram, and my post was wife material is a myth. And that came at the back of the concept as construes it is such that first things first, marriage is some sort of achievement. And in order for you to be able to qualify for that entity, you have to meet certain criteria of behavioral manifestations, right? And regardless of who you say you are, regardless of who you want to become, there are certain criteria that you must meet in order for you to qualify for this entity. You understand? So for me, I think that it has elements of, and I'm talking from the context of how society contributes. It's got elements of oppression because there's a lot of women end up not being able to express themselves fully because they are expected to behave in a certain way. And us as men also have certain expectations expectations of how women should act like, because now she's the wife now. You know what I mean? So it's like there's a difference between a woman expressing herself fully and a woman being a wife. So for me, it's just a term that limits women from full expression. It's a compliance measure that if you want to be in this entity, these are the behavioral manifestations that you must comply with, and therefore you will qualify for this entity. And the thing is, it also goes beyond society. It's got biblical, also the Bible has its own views in terms of what a woman should be. So it's a very strong concept that has been ingrained in society for a very long time, which has put women in a I wouldn't say confusing. It has forced women, and I'm saying forced in inverted commas because you guys always have a choice. You know, I do appreciate that in other societies it's a little bit more difficult, but you always have a choice to say, am I going to comply or am I going to express myself fully for who I am, regardless of what is expected of me, so to speak.
Yeah. Linz, you wanted to respond?
I just wanted to actually, Tsepo said a lot of the stuff that I wanted to say. That unfortunately, this whole concept of wife material puts us as women in a box. And I think I mentioned earlier, I think I was talking to you guys, where I was saying that the issue is that there's this universal understanding of what wife material is. Women are raised to fulfill that criteria, and men are raised to look for that criteria. So it then becomes difficult when you enter into relationships where you're building towards something, might not necessarily be marriage, where there's no equality. It's always been on the female side to fulfill certain things in terms of the character, how she builds the home, how she raises kids, the way she thinks, how she deals with your friends, you know. And for me, wife material is really something that just puts everyone in a box.
Yeah. So you're the only one really on the platform right now who's ever been married. Did you find that when you were about to get married, there were certain things that individuals attempted to impose on you? Was there advice that you were given that you thought that makes sense? What was your experience of that navigation with regards to the voices around you?
So there's definitely lots of voices that happen when it comes to wife material. And it's so interesting because there is this generation. So our generation is not anti-wife material, but we're anti the concept, right? So there's that generation, and then there's our parents' generation, and then there's our parents' aunts' generation. So not necessarily our parents' generation, but their aunts who are slightly older than my mom, maybe 15 years older than my mom, and not 25 years or 30 years older than my mom. So I find that my mother's generation, they have a very good understanding of why this notion or this concept of wife material can be debilitating towards a person. Does that make sense? They've been through the hardships with men, and they've realized what it means within society and how sometimes I say it can be demeaning and push you into this box. And what I found was that a lot of women that are my mother's age, and my mother included, would kind of go, just be yourself. You know what I mean? They'd always talk about this thing of be yourself. Your person has fallen in love with who you are, and for him that is a wife, right? And not all, and maybe I'm just coming from a lucky space, but the older generation, slightly older than my mother, would then come back and bazoglaya to almost say, no, this is what wife material is. You must wake up in the morning at 6 o'clock and do all these different things that they put down. And then there's also a generation that is within our generation that believes in all these things that are supposed to be wife material. And then you talk with guys, and a lot of guys are just like, I fell in love with who you are. And that for me makes you wife material for me. It's not a lot of guys. But I find that it's growing more and more. There's more and more guys that are kind of just going, this wife material thing is holding us back because society's changed. So it's harder to be wife material when you're not able to be in the house all day and cook and clean and do all these things. You have to go to work. You have to be able to provide for your family and assist within your family. In South Africa specifically, a lot of women are earning more than men. So as a woman, you'll often be working as hard as a man, harder sometimes even, and still be required to be all these things that required you to be this so-called wife material. So that said, I found that within my marriage that I was in and my friends' marriages, they have defined for themselves what wife material means. And that said, not a lot of people are doing that. There's still people that will say, of course you're divorced because you don't do A, B, C, D. And of course, because they'll be like, you were not wife material. You don't understand how you were wifed in the first place. But when I was wifed, I was wifed with unhappiness and knowing that this is his wife material. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I heard you speaking about how there are men now who say you are wife material to me because I love you. I've had a different experience. I think I've spoken to a number of men. I'm going to use this as like scientific data. I've heard a lot of men say that they don't necessarily marry the woman they love. They marry the woman who fits best into their structure. The woman who is going to be compliant, the woman who the family is going to approve of. Maybe it's going to be about her family. He's not going to marry a woman from a single parent home because he comes from a complete home. And oh, whoa, how can I bring such incompleteness into my family? Oh, how bizarre. You get what I mean? So a lot of men have expressed that they have encountered the woman they love, the woman like they love. They're like, oh, I'd love to be with this woman, but she does not fit into the construct. She does not fit into the picture. She doesn't she doesn't tick the boxes that determine that she qualifies to be wife. Tepo, because you're a man, I'm sure men are generally more open around each other, just as women are more open around each other, right? Is this a sentiment that you share? Is what I'm saying accurate? Am I completely off the mark? What is your experience told you about what I'm saying right
now? It's you're sitting a rock and a hard place. Here's the thing, and I'm gonna be a little bit controversial. There's nothing wrong, I believe, right? There's nothing wrong with. I think the key thing here is self-expression, right? So, if I see myself, you get guys that say, I want a woman who can do what, women who can cook, who can take her kids, and so on and so forth, right? And you get women that say, I want a man with money who's just going to take care of me. That's my husband material, reliable. Now, there's nothing wrong with a man wanting a woman who wants to do things, right? It's in as far as wife material is in society. Yeah. But there's a disclaimer to that, right? That woman, the highest expression of being a wife is doing those things, and it's not based on some compliance, then accept, right? But if you meet a woman as a man and this woman is ambitious, she's self-driven, she wants to, follow a career, she wants to grow, and she wants to fully express herself differently, don't be the guy who puts a stop to that because you have certain expectations of what a wife should be, right? Regardless of how you love that person. But if you do love that person, then it means that you also love the qualities that come with her. Those qualities of her wanting to pursue a career or a business or grow in a certain manner, even regardless of whether that is something that society shuns upon or accepts, it doesn't matter. So I think the key part is that woman's her saying that she wants to cook and do all, if that is her highest expression of self within a marriage, then go ahead, do that, because then you're not complying. You're actually living based on how you have defined yourself, right? But I have no right as a man to say that I expect you to come back home at 5 o'clock to come and cook for me and the kids. I expect you to do 1, 2, 3, even though you know fully well that there's this career that I'm following. There's this ambition. I'm expressing myself in a certain way. In the same breath, there's guys who are very happy to have money, right? And to just provide for their people. I'm not that guy. Me, I want a woman who's got her ish together and who wants to pursue a career and stuff. I love that personally, right? But this guy actually wants to be that guy with money and provide, and they don't see a need for a woman to work and do and pursue a career. But they all find a woman who expresses herself fully in terms of your own viewpoint. You understand? So that's the disjuncture there. That we all have a right to choose whatever, whether it's compliance with society or whatever, it doesn't matter. What matters most is what is the highest expression of self, right? Because we can say that it's wrong how society thinks, but I find that there's actually people who resonate with what society thinks and say, look, I believe this is how things should be, and I believe this is how I should be expressing myself. And they've got every right to do it. So it will be very excited for us to say at the same breath, express yourself. I think the key is that express yourself, but express yourself in your own individuality, even if it means you are complying with society.
Lens, you wanted to respond?
I hear what we're all saying, right? But as Tepo was talking, I was thinking to myself, in a realistic setup, I think a lot of women like myself have been there, where when you're younger, you do have your own aspirations, your own dreams, your own ways of expressing yourself, right? But you also have this need to be loved, and to be loved in the context of a relationship. So you do, when you haven't found yourself, that's why what Tepo was saying is really important in terms of growing into yourself and being comfortable with expressing who you are. When you haven't gotten to that point in your life, you find yourself in a position where you almost mold yourself to what you can see. I mean, we're great at gauging each other. You know, like I meet this guy, I can see he likes this type of woman. And then I'll also have the foundation of, I'm great at cooking, I'm domesticated, I do this, I'm great with parents, blah, 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 blah. And then you kind of hide the part of you that you think will not be accepted, because you want to be looked at. And it's almost, and when you're younger, it's almost an achievement when someone says you're wife material. And therein for me lies the problem, because it took me having to go through a few relationships for me to be like, actually, I don't care what you think. This is me, and this is who I want to be, and this is how I want to express myself. I like tattoos. I like having my drinks. I like going out with my friends. I'm ambitious. I've got dreams, and my dreams won't always allow for me to be at home or available to raise a family and be that wife material sort of package all the time. And these are difficult things because, you know, when you're young, you're worried about rejection. Yeah. Because then when you express that, it's almost as if you're like, this person is not going to like me, and it's going to be like, and you know, and I think most of us have been through those experiences where you've kind of been either rejected or been oppressed because you want to be free in expressing who you are. So what I like about the show is that we also discuss then what do people do in those situations? What's the way forward? Because as much as we've gone through it, I'm pretty sure that women in their early 20s now are going through the same thing. You know, women do this cotizaring thing all the time when they're dating. And I'm like, I'm sorry. And I got to a point where I was like, I actually won't tell anyone that I can cook. I'm just like, I don't know how to cook.
No, but like... But Linz, I think that this I'll get to you, Sips. I think that this is an aspiration that is ingrained in us, and what's also ingrained in us through influences is what's required of you to achieve this aspiration, right? So everyone here on this platform right now knows me. I'm a loudmouth. I'm obnoxious. I swear like a sailor. I'm opinionated. I'm not very tactful, right? So growing up, I was told so many times, you are going to die alone with that attitude. You know what I mean? And by then I believe that being married is what qualifies me. I need to get married. So I'm just like, Palesa, okay, just chop here, you know, deal with this, and I'd always fall short, you know, and in those moments where I fell short, my boyfriend says to me, and then I'm wearing leggings I got a bad body, guys, I got a bad body, you know, and I'd be wearing my leggings and I look nice in them, and he's like, I always fall short. And these men who highlighted these things about me would forget that I'm smart, that I'm resourceful, that I'm generous, that I'm affectionate, that I'm a giving lover. And they'd always hide. So then at some point I was like, yes, I'm going to die alone, guys. I'm falling short. And then one day I was just like, but do these things, all these good things about me, do they become null and void? Because yes, Gatella, guys, no problem. Yes, it's true. You know what I mean? But why does why does the other stuff not matter? And I got to a point where I was just like, you know what? Take it and leave it. Take it and leave it. Because if I were you, I would take it, honey. You know, because I now know what matters, and I'm so entrenched in my belief of what matters. And I believe I tick 98% of those boxes, you know, but it's something that I had to unlearn all that other stuff because it was whispered into my ear for so many years that it settled as truth in my psyche. You know, Sips, you want to say something?
First of all, how telling. You stand up for yourself.
Yeah.
Therefore, people interpret that as hudella. If a man did the same thing that you did, in the same way, same tone, same words, same body language, everything, they would never say, right? They would just be like, that's all.
Yeah.
So how tell number one. So take that back. Okay.
I take it back.
Take that back. And then, so I have a problem with society in that marriage is the thing. We are all working towards this thing. That's just, it is what it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like people always say to me, "Oh, you were married, blah blah blah. Would you get married again?" I said, "Yeah, I love marriage, but it's not my goal. But it's not my goal. Does that make sense?" And the problem is within society, it's become a goal.
Yeah.
Not to become. It is a goal. It's actually become less of a goal from when our parents were our parents. But that is the problem, is that you becoming a wife material for something that, because people say, oh, you must be this.
Yeah.
I'm not wife material, yo. In terms of if you want to tick boxes, I'm not. I don't cook. I don't clean. I don't anything. But men love me. Men want to marry me.
Yeah.
So I do not like this thing that society is still stuck on that you must be wife material so that you can get married, blah, 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 blah. Does that make sense? Yeah. Especially in this day and age, especially in the modern age. I was watching something just before we went online, and Alec Baldwin, he said something like, in the modern age, men and women need to re-look at how we treat each other. It's very different. It's very, very different. And I just feel like that needs to happen. We influence each other, even as girls and as boys. You know, boys when they're hanging together, girls when they're hanging together. It's always like, hi, Marasibs, hey, now, you talk so much rubbish on social media, you'll never get a man. I'm just like, that's what you think. But we also lie at each other in that direction, and I don't know how. I don't know why. When it's not what we want, most of us are hate this thing of marriage material or wife material. But we push ourselves into it all the time. Don't do that. Palisa, Oscar shout, Palisa. You know, I mean, like a man doesn't like a woman who shouts. Come on, guys. She's not shouting. She's just being assertive. Something happened that she didn't like. You didn't listen to it. She decided to shout so that you can listen and hear her. That's all. In the same way that a man will shout when he feels like he's not being listened to.
Yeah. Okay, I'd like to read some comments. We're out here talking by ourselves, but we've got comments. Okay, I'm going to read a comment from, sorry, Sibs, Mac G Ramp Scribe. The underlying aspect of wife material or the concept of having standards is common for both sides. I think at the end of the day, these are just expressions of how people would like to be treated. And it's important that those expressions are based on respect from both sides. Tepo, do you want to say something? No. Okay. So we were actually speaking before we went live on the show, and Sibs was like, you know what? This is wife. There is something called husband material for me. For me. She kept saying for me. You know, and what we came to is that, yeah, we can have husband material for me, but generally wife material is something that has been generalized, which is why we wanted to talk about it. Let me read another comment. Sorry, guys, I've been neglecting your comments. So sorry, Sibs. I'm so sorry, Sibs. Mofenyi says, a woman who does not work more for herself. You will open up I don't know what that is, and become a mental statistic. Back to the matter that we mentioned tonight. There is no wife material. You're looking for material from a cloth you grew up familiar with. Your wife material is, so to speak, must be the one your heart is at peace with.
Wow.
Thank you, Mufenyi. Let me read another one. I've been one more. Stembiso says, I personally believe, yes, Tepo, I'll get to you now. I personally believe all women are wife material, but just like there's cotton, silk, satin, and polyester, it is entirely dependent on the garment, in brackets, family life you want to create. Societal expectations are just laws of averages. That is, that worked for him, so it must work for everyone. Psh, bump that. Be you.
Yes.
Tepo, what did you want to say? Tepo?
Yeah. No, I actually, I'm glad that it's mostly guys who are saying the comments. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
I'm saying I'm quite glad that it's mostly guys who are seeing these comments. I'm gonna get a little bit personal. I was raised. My mom and dad divorced when we were young, right? And the reason why was because my mom was not the typical wife material. You know, she was expected to act a certain way and to do certain things and so on and so forth. But my mom tried, but she wasn't having none of it, right? Because she understood that she was not expressing herself fully. And you know, my dad was mostly influenced by her family. I mean, by his family, and you know, and it ended up not waking up, right? And the view I have on wife material basically stems from that. It stems from me observing my mom, because even though she did not meet the criteria of wife material, she ended up, you know, raising 4 kids that are pretty much doing pretty well right now, and they're pretty, you know, they're doing quite okay for themselves, and she did a damn good job. So the idea of an independent woman expressing herself that way, that's where it comes from. That's where I observed it from when I was still young, you know, seeing how my mother was able to be herself unapologetically, right? And not only do that, but also express it. Look, there's 2 disjunctures here, right? You've got compliance, and then you've got expression, right? Now, the choice is always yours. What is going to be a guideline to your life? Are you going to comply? Comply is just a comfort zone. Comply doesn't require you to think. It doesn't require you to question. You know, it's an easy way to fit in, and fitting in is always comfortable, right? But expressing yourself is a whole different ballgame, because when you express yourself, you normally have to veer away from compliance, right?
Yeah.
But the beauty about expressing yourself is that you are one with your spirit as well, because your spirit never complies. Your spirit says, this is who you are. So you are either going to be with me, or if you comply, you leave your spirit behind. And the thing is, you're going to go through your entire life knowing fully well that this that I'm doing right here is not who I am, right? So at the end of the day, it's a conversation that you are going to have with yourself. Here's the thing. You can't do anything about how society thinks, right? It's been there before the day we were born. It will be there and long after we're gone. So we can't do anything about that. So all we can do is adjust ourselves to living our lives based on how we want to express ourselves truthfully. Because it's one thing to say that you guys were, you know, before the show, of the week, you guys were talking about a woman of worth and giving your whole different views and so on and so forth. And the thing is, you can see yourself, you can put certain criteria and say, okay, a woman of worth is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? But it's one thing to say this is what a woman of worth is. And until you practice that truth, that woman of worth is only a concept, right? So you can speak about self-expression, right? But until you that expression truly, it will always remain a concept. So the question is, do you have the courage, regardless of what society thinks, for you to go and practice your truth? Do you have the courage to walk away from a relationship that does not allow you to express yourself as an individual, right? Because we've got to, you know, this is a marriage, you know, you must, and I'm not advocating for divorce. What I'm advocating for is losing your soul for compliance. That's what I'm advocating for. That is your soul worth compliance with society? And that is the question at hand. That is that what you're willing to do? Is that how you're willing to live your life? Because that is always going to catch up with you. Regret will never leave you. It will always catch up with you. I don't care how much you ignore it. I don't care how older you get thinking that it's going to get numb. Yeah, it's gonna get numb, but you're always going to look back and say, "Damn, this is the woman that I was supposed to be." But because society has put me in a box, I decided to comply. I decided to ignore my spirit. I decided to ignore self. I decided to allow self to remain a concept for the rest of my life and never experienced it experientially. And that will always be something that haunts you. So what I'm saying is that, yes, society is very powerful in a sense that it influences the way we think at some level. It really does, right? But at the same time, you need to say, as far as this influence is there, this environment that I'm operating within, who am I in relation to it? Who am I? Always ask that question, right?
Yeah.
And when you ask that question, and that's why I love being curious, because curiosity allows you to ask questions, to say, who am I in relation to what I am expected to do?
Yeah.
Right? If what I'm expected to do is in line with my spirit, then I will do it. If it's not in line with my spirit, I'm not going to do it. It doesn't resonate with me. And therefore, I cannot express myself fully that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Wow.
Sips?
So to kind of touch on what to kind of touch on something that Tshepo said and what Mufenyi I think it's Mufenyi, right? Commented on about so Tshepo talked about his mom being someone that was in his life, that lived her life within what she wanted to be, right? She decided, no, this is who I want to be, and I don't fit into this mold. I will take myself out of the mold. I've noticed that for myself, when I meet guys, I ask about their moms. Who's your mom? What does she do? What's it like at home? When you were growing up, what was it like? And the reason that I ask these questions is because generally a man will go for someone who's like their mom. Ne? So if the mother was a working mom, and so for me, ne, I'm lazy as hell. I'm like a man. So someone that says to me, my mother worked throughout growing up. We had Usisi Ekhaya that was cleaning, blah, 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 blah. Then he has not grown up thinking in his head, a woman must clean, a woman must, all these things. So in my head, I go, do a little bit of a tick, because I could fit into that wife material. It's not, because for him, it's not an expectation that people must be like this. Does that make sense? I'm trying to think what Mufenyi said that made me nod. Is it possible? Is it possible to go back? I'm sorry.
I'll bring his comment up.
There we go. Thank you. It goes back to that familiarity, right? You talked about the cloth that you're looking for. This material is going to be a cloth that you are familiar with, which goes back to when I look for a man and I talk with a man. If he feels familiar, or if his mother feels familiar to me, then I'm more likely to go, okay, I can try and make this work, because it's someone that I don't have to do that long job of explaining Wuti. I'm on my laptop at 11 o'clock at night because I'm working. I didn't cook. Listen, I'm on a phone call. Whoa. I've ordered Uber. Go downstairs. Go get the Uber Eats. And not having to explain that to a man who's going to go, why ungapeganga? Why is the house untidy? A man that will be able to come into the house and go, oh, the house is untidy. She hasn't cooked. I'm not going to cook because I'm also equally tired, but I'll tidy up. And then, oh, she's WhatsApped me, sitting in front of me while she's busy doing whatever she's doing, saying that there's Uber Eats. So that's what I do now. I want to know about your mom, because your mom is going to be what you are familiar with. and what you're looking for. And if you come with and no offense to anyone, but if your mom is with a stay-at-home mom and what, your expectations are not what I can deliver. I can't deliver that. I can't. I'm a working woman. Like, I'm here to make money, y'all. So I love that the guys, not the boys, the guys touched on it. Muthenyi and another Tepo also touched on the fact that his mother chose. She went, this is not my portion.
Yeah.
We must also, as women, choose. This is not my portion, and it's fine, and it's okay to not, and doesn't make you not wife material. There are plenty of women that carry on to get married again or marry someone who just goes, that's fine. As you, as my wife, and not doing what society requires of you, I still love you. So for me, as a girl, as a woman who is in relationships, I always ask about your mother. I want to know about your mom, because then I know what your expectation of me as a girlfriend or a wife is, and that material. So I go, okay, I'm cotton, your mother's cotton, sharp, or I'm cotton, your mother is velvet. It might not work.
Yeah.
And those are big things, because mothers are so important to men. They are. And as women, we become antsy about it, but their mothers are so important. Their mother's been their structure, the person that's held them and raised them all these years. That person and what they were is what they're going to look in for you. Does that make sense?
Something interesting keeps happening here. Like, what keeps coming up is the whole, we haven't spoken about what wife material is. We haven't been like, okay, this is the list, this. But the thing that keeps coming up is domestication, right? It's cooking, it's cleaning, anyway. So I got a comment from Tandy on YouTube, and she said, but are these qualities and traits not just the basics of adulting? A woman and man should both be able to cook and clean, care for the kids, grocery shop, etc. Basically, be able to look after yourself. You know, my mom was telling us a story of when she first got married to my dad. So she moved into his home when they first got married, and she says the one morning she's getting ready for work. She was a nurse for Natal Street. She's getting ready, and my grandmother walked up to her and said to her, I'll say it in English so everyone can understand. And she said to her, is your husband not hungry? And my mom was like, ask him. And the whole house tumbled to the ground. You know? So, I think, you know, as much as my mom and I are very different, but I had the experience. My mom has 5 kids. There are 5 of us at home, right? My mom has been a housewife. She always decides to give each child like 2-3 years where she's home and she's fully present, but then she goes back to work. You know, my mom's got qualifications on qualifications. You get what I mean? She even now my mother works. She's retiring next year. She's got degrees on degrees, but sometimes she decides to sit at home. There were 5 years where my mom supported the family because my dad was doing his master's and she needed to support the family and the 3 kids. You get what I mean? So I'm not saying I have anything against what a woman is. Like I was saying, I don't remember what show it was where I was speaking about how I think it's important for us to embrace the things that are us as women. Like we're all maternal, we're nurturing, we're soft spirits, you know what I mean? But we're not just that. You know, we're not just that. You know, so why do you think, Linz, we have been reduced to just that when we're a lot more than just that? It doesn't make sense to me, you know, but it seems to be something that is so prevalent and so accepted. You know, if you can't cook, you are useless. You are useless. You get what I mean? I can cook. I'm glad I can cook. You know, I'm glad I can look, but it's more, I'm glad I can look after myself. You know, I saw horrors in first year when we all moved to raise, and there were girls who weren't taught to look after themselves. They couldn't clean their own house. They couldn't clean themselves. There were hygiene issues. So I'm happy to have been domesticated because of that. Not because it was for someone or someone's son. You get what I mean?
Wow, there's so many points coming into my mind. But I'll speak to one or two. In terms of women's how do I put it, value being confined. I don't want to say reduced, because some people are domesticated and this is who they have chosen to be. They enjoy it. In terms of women's value being confined to being domesticated, for me, what I've seen in my upbringing, not necessarily in my own home, but in my extended family's dynamics and friends' dynamics growing up, is that, like I touched on earlier, men are taught to look for a certain thing and women are taught to be that thing. But the boy child is not raised to be a certain thing in a partnership of sorts. And I think also another thing is, when we raise our kids, a lot of parents don't teach the boy child to be independent and take care of himself. What is taught is, when you find a good wife, you will be able to. When you do this, you'll find a good wife and she'll be able to. You know what I mean? It's all about the good wife, the wife material. Everything points to that being the center of what should be your barometer of success in a relationship or marriage. Whereas no one speaks about, so what do you want for yourself? Who are you? What are your likes? What are your dislikes? What do you think where do you think your spiritual journey is taking you? Oh, okay. Why do you like that person? Why do you think that person, you know what I mean? So we don't, parenting, even some people in our generation, parenting doesn't, well, a lot of people don't parent in the sense that they allow their children, or they've allowed us to be free in choosing who we want to be. Now, I'll tell you on my side, I'll speak to, I was raised by a single mom, and my parents got divorced when I was quite young. And sorry, mom, putting your business out there. But my mom had a really difficult marriage. So I wasn't raised to be wife material. I wasn't raised to aspire to want marriage. Like, marriage wasn't an achievement for me. My mother was just like, if you want to get married, get married. If you don't, you don't. Like, my mother was just like, do you? As long as you can take care of yourself, you're happy, you guys can discuss things if you're in a relationship or partnership, then that's great. But she was just, I think, and as much as it was a horrible experience for her, it became a blessing for me, because she then started to make, like, she started to take things, like, help me unpack what I want. What do I aspire to do? And what do I look for in a partner? And do I want to fit into that domesticated sort of box? My mom was very domesticated. Like, she worked really hard, and even in the house. And at times we still have fights about things like she's taught me, like, when you wake up in the morning, this is what you must do, this is what you must do, this, you know. So I have been taught to be domesticated, but that hasn't been the only thing that she's taught me to be or identify with. So I think it's important to allow your kids or allow yourself to identify with what resonates with you, and what you like, what you don't like, and allow that to speak in terms of the decisions you make in your partnerships. And don't allow anyone else to dictate what you should be and what you shouldn't be. And if they can't deal with that, then unfortunately you'll need to move on.
We're already over time, but I'd like to read one more comment that I think speaks to a lot of what's been said. Minnie says, I think in some cases, the fact that we are inclined to pay with the familiar can be detrimental. Sometimes the darkness eventually outweighs the light. I think basically what she's saying there is that once you allow yourself to explore outside of the boundaries within which you've been conditioned to explore, maybe you actually find the thing you want. Might be controversial when it comes to your family, might be backlash, but at the end of the day, it's the thing that you and that person have to live with. You know, Tip a lot about expression, about listening to the soul, listening to the spirit, listening to the voice inside that is often suppressed. You know, that voice, guys, the intuition, the discernment, the instinct, the what's it called? The chemistry. That voice is inherently is so loud in us. It's so loud in us, but we learn to suppress it. We learn to suppress it because there are all these other voices that say, no, not that one, this one here. No, not that one, this one here. You know, so maybe if we silence the voices that say wife material, that say that have these snap judgments and generalizations, maybe we actually allow ourselves to find the thing we actually want without matching it against the boxes that others said needed to be ticked.
Absolutely.
I think that's a good place to round it off.
Yeah.
Tepo, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Sibs, thank you. Linz, thank you. Everyone who's watching, thank you for your comments. Thank you for your engagement, your interaction, your opinions, for sharing. It's been an amazing show. We'll see you again next week, Thursday, 8 p.m. live on Facebook, YouTube. Continue having conversations. Yes, Tepo. Okay. Good night, guys.
Cheers, guys. And thank you for having me. It's been awesome.